Hi, I'm Vicki Hyman. I am here with our Game of Thrones roundtable at the NJ Advanced Media offices. And please introduce yourself, guys.
My name is Craig McCarthy.
And I'm Sir Jorah. Oh, no, I'm John Shabe, actually.
Sir Shabe.
Yes.
So today was last night was the 5th episode of Game of Thrones, and it's interesting because we finally had some movement in some parts of the world, and it's starting to bog down in other parts of the world. A big change. At Castle Black, we finally have Stannis leaving Castle Black and Jon, who's going to be going north of the Wall to help rescue the wildlings and bring them south of the Wall, lest they become White Walkers and cause more problems for the men of the Night's Watch. What did you think of that?
I thought that was a really bold step by Jon to do that and go against the popular, the people were clearly really pissed off about it and still are. Nobody trusts anybody. And how about that scene where he unshackles, and I forget his name.
Tormund Giantsbane?
Yeah.
How could you forget
Big red
that?
beard guy?
Yes.
He unshackled him, and there was the moment there where he could have ripped him apart, and he didn't do it. So maybe that's a really good sign for the future, Craig.
Well, I'm sorry. I just think that Jon made a really good point that, if you don't bring them south, they're just going to become more White Walkers or whatever they become. Right. So I think that's a really strong selling point.
Well, and I also think the backing of Stannis giving him ships was a very big push of confidence in that, and it shows that he is making the right decision. When we went to the Targaryen Maester that's up there, and he didn't even have to tell him what it is. I love that line where he just says, half of the Night's Watch already hates you.
Yeah, right.
So he was already making those decisions that was dividing the camp, but he was doing it for the betterment of all mankind, which I think that'll play out very well for him. Hopefully.
Yes, and so we also have Stannis heading south to attack Winterfell, which is very exciting. We have Melisandre giving Jon, a very significant look at
but
the
she was
end.
just looming, and I don't know if you
she
noticed
was just there.
The whole episode, all she was doing was this.
Yeah. Staring at people, staring at Shireen. I don't
She's
even
very
know.
good at looming, though. That's a really good quality in
Any TV character.
Yes.
It'll loom effectively. I thought the little interaction between Shireen and Sir Davos is very sweet, which again makes me think with the grayscale, which we're going to get to in a little bit, that Shireen is going to play some important role going forward, which is very interesting as a person who's read the books, because there are people who did not play large roles in the books who are now being raised in prominence, and it's like, I don't know what's going to happen, which is kind of exciting, because the first few seasons, I knew everything that was going to happen.
And it was interesting, and last week, when Stannis had that moment with his daughter, and then they kind of highlighted her and how passionate he was about her. And then you didn't really see that before. And now this week, you have that big scene with her, and not really a big exchange, but a very short exchange. And then the mother cuts it off because she's crazy.
She's awful.
She's
She's awful, and those cheekbones could cut a man. So they are headed down to Winterfell, and we have Roose and Ramsay Bolton at Winterfell preparing to be attacked. There is a lot of really interesting stuff going on at Winterfell. Leaving aside Brienne, who all she was doing was looming as well. You have the father-son dynamics that are very interesting. Ramsay, for some reason, decided he's sort of going to show his true colors in front of Sansa by parading Reek/Theon out in front of her and just being kind of a big old jerk about it.
Is that the most cringe-worthy dinner you've ever seen in your life?
It was pretty bad.
Since, like, a Real Housewives meal? I mean, that was incredible. It was hard to watch.
I mean, but he plays it up as being a very... You love to hate him. Like, he's a very good, crazy character.
I don't agree. I think he's, like, too over the top. He's too, like, crazy eyes. I'm sorry. I've always felt that way about him. He's pushing it too much. I'm not really crazy about the actor.
The only thing... Well, I would agree with that, too. But then I always kind of thought he didn't really fit in, and he wasn't really his father's son until his father told that story.
Very heartwarming story too.
Oh yes,
I
very
raped her
bonding.
mother underneath her husband's, corpse. Oh, it was lovely.
But then you were like, well, okay, so I guess I see why he is your son. That made sense.
On the other hand, I mean, Roose does not seem to have any love for anybody except for himself, and so after he announces that he and Walda are pregnant, are probably going to have a son, later he goes to Ramsay and he says, well, basically you'll always be my son. I don't really believe that. I'm sorry. No, I think he's using Ramsay.
I feel like this is Ramsay's moment to shine. It's it's your time to shine. You know, it's like, okay, Ramsay, you know, put up or you know, basically what I got out of that was, if we win this, you're in great shape, and if not, you know, I got someone else waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
You know.
The comments though that he made after that were great.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he does have some funny lines in there, and that's, I think, this season was lacking a little bit, is that you don't have any like happy times. Like you had Arya and the Hound last season. That was
happy times.
Well, they had like very
Some
good one-liners.
comedy.
Some
Yeah.
I mean, it's getting a little bit drawn out for me right now, and I really want something to happen. I know we spoke about this last week, that Ser Jorah dying wasn't really a big monumentous thing for me, and
Barristan.
I'm sorry, and that whole scene really, I'm waiting for really something to really if you're gonna go away from the book so much, I really want them to do something that's really meaningful, that kind of pulls me back in. I don't know, but
Well, I thought it was exciting, the scene where Jorah and Tyrion are taking a shortcut through Valyria. Probably not a good idea. They see Drogon overhead, and I love that they're watching Drogon, and behind them one of the stone men drops into the water. It's like, I thought that was a really good scene.
that was. Yes.
And it was finally a scene where there have been so many scenes of Tyrion and whoever he is with sort of like exchanging barbs about what role he's going to play, and he just wants to drink, and actually something finally happened with Tyrion moving along. So, and of course it turns out that Ser Jorah ends up with a bit of grayscale,
Yep.
which is not something that happens in the books. And
Which I was told that
You were told what?
Spill.
What
that somebody
did
else
David
gets,
and DB tell
that
you?
somebody else gets grayscale in the book.
Okay.
But I thought that was interesting, and then he cuts him loose,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah, well, how
It
did he
just-
save him, too, was very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, he was way down there, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, and there's no stone men around either.
Well, I thought they were going to end the episode with that.
Yeah, me
Because,
too.
I mean, they
Yeah.
usually every time they go to black,
It went
that's
to
the
black,
end
and
of
it
the
stayed
episode.
black, and
Yeah.
then there was no music.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But I wonder what's going to happen with Ser Jorah. I mean, obviously there is a cure or a way to
Stop it.
because Davos' daughter.
no,
Sorry,
Stannis' daughter,
Stannis'
Shireen.
daughter, Shireen,
Of
took
course,
care
Stannis
of it.
had, all the maesters
But-
in all of Westeros working on it.
But I also say, I mean, if you watch the preview for the upcoming season, when the season started, you see Ser Jorah in the fighting pits. So he has to make it there eventually. I'm sorry if you guys didn't see that and
I
notice that,
didn't
but
remember
you
that.
see him fighting in some sort of ring. I'm assuming it's the fighting pits, because she's reopening the fighting. Khaleesi's reopening the fighting pits, and then that's happening. So I'm assuming that's how it happens. But
Well, speaking of the fighting pits, we're finally in Marine. Well, we'll end with Marine, where I'm kind of exhausted. I'm exhausted of it in the book. I'm not really sure why Daenerys has been in Marine for so long, except she's got to make sure the slaves, maintain their freedom, and she's got to sort of learn how to rule. But it's like, oh my God, just attack Westeros already. This is getting really old, and now she's got an alliance with, oh my God, Hizdar Zolarak. He gets his rose.
Yeah, you got the rose. That's a good
Yeah.
call. I was like, I'm really wondering what this royal wedding will be like, and maybe they'll downplay it. And could one of the dragons be a ring bearer? That's what I'm looking for.
That would be exciting.
It would be. I mean, God knows what would happen.
Yeah,
but-
upping the game for all the other brides and grooms in Westeros
Yes,
and Essos.
exactly.
Well, I think the thing is with Marine is you don't have the dynamic of like the small council that you had in King's Landing. You don't have those dramatics or any of those interactions anymore, because everybody died
Yes.
or got sent away. And Ser
And
Jorah's
it's-
coming back, but
I've always said that, House of Cards with dragons, and you don't really get that House of Cards, like the machinations, which I think is really the strong point of Game of Thrones.
Right.
The politics of it. And it's just like...
and they had that in the first. I think they had that in the first two seasons.
Mhm.
First season especially,
Mhm.
I think that was all about the politics.
Mhm.
And then when it was just the Lannisters now in King's Landing, it's
Mhm.
kind of, I don't know, it's underwhelming to me. But
Well, now we've got the Lannisters, and you didn't see them at all this season, but you're going to have the Lannisters with the High Sparrow. So
yes,
I didn't actually get to see the scenes from next week, but I'm hoping
Oh.
we return to King's Landing.
but we also returned to Arya.
Oh, that's exciting.
Arya's coming back in Dorne, I think.
Well, it's
Right.
weird, actually. I have we seen Dorne in the opening credits before today?
Yes,
Before last night?
yeah. It was
Okay,
in for the second.
But they
episode.
showed it last night, and there was no Dorne at all. So
Right.
it's very frustrating. I get
Yeah.
very excited for
I'm
Dorne.
not really sure if they're sticking by the old
Mhm.
setup where it was every time they would hit those cities, but
But last week, I don't think they have Dorne.
Yes, I
Okay.
I thought they did, but maybe
Last week was was Jamie landing on Dorne,
Oh,
and
yes.
It was a
going
very
to town.
Dorne-heavy
It
episode.
was very Dorny, yeah.
Very.
But so next week, Arya in the House
Black
Black and White,
She's
and that
going to
should
graduate.
be. Oh well, we'll see, I guess, but it should be very interesting.
Okay, well, we will be back next week, as always. It's going to be the Mad Men finale, too, so my loyalties are torn. But thank you for joining us again, and we hope to see you next week.